What's up, guys? This is the story of Sticks. So we had just got on to this new property. It was at the beginning of August, and the people that hunted the property, we had asked them about. We had originally got on this property mainly to hog hunt and turkey hunt. So we had asked them if they had any big deer on camera, and there was a few, but they were just a lot of them just weren't mature yet. But one of the neighboring properties, they were really big on trying to let things grow and do it right and manage the deer. So we got on the property, we went down there and we started putting cameras out. And me and Raleigh both, we just walked the woods, try to figure out where we wanted to go, try to find what we thought was bedding areas or any type of trails or any spot really, just to hang a camera and try to see what we could track down. But the spots we had picked originally, there just wasn't much activity on camera, which I say it was concerning, but it wasn't, just because of the fact that it's still early. Two, we didn't know the property. So me and Raleigh both, we just said, you know what, we're just gonna put cameras out and we'll see what we can find. So we put some out, and then some of the previous videos y'all have seen, there's a really swampy bottom that we have, and then there was another stand. It was a ladder stand that had already been there, and it hasn't been hunted in a couple years. That there was overgrowth on it, that there was no way to find the trail. One of the guys on the property just kind of pointed us where it was, and we walked in and we finally found it. So we put a camera out there, and the swamp bottom's kind of hardwoods, but it's on the edge of pines, planted pines. So there's like three fingers that come together that are planted pines, and they run into that little swamp bottom it's nothing but hardwoods. Well, there's a creek that runs that whole bottom, and if we get a good rain, it kind of floods out down there, which is why it stays swampy. So we put a camera there, and then at probably 350, 400 yards away is where that ladder stand was, and that was nothing but planted pines, and it's thick. It is so thick in there, which is partially how he got his name Sticks, with that, and then the sticker that he has up here. So I've been fortunate, in my life, to be able to harvest some good deer, and some with character. And my favorite part about deer hunting is just, I get out there and I'm blessed. God has blessed me and my family to have this opportunity, which is also why we started doing this, was just to be able to share it with other people and just encourage other people to get in the outdoors. So we got out there, put the cameras out there. It was kind of slow the first couple weeks, and it was right around September 10th, so not long before archery season started. He showed up, and he showed up in the swamp bottom. Well, he showed up with about 4 other bucks. Again, I've never seen them, didn't know they were there. There was 3 small ones. They were probably a year old, 2 years old. But from the looks of those pictures on trail cam, there was some pretty good deer there. Mature, just good deer. So when I seen him, I seen this, and that was something that I've never been able to. I've never harvested a deer with any kind of, we'll say, sticker or any type of trash, and there's some that's on the bottom here, which if y'all follow along on Instagram, you can look at the pictures. I took some pictures on there. So he showed up, and he started kind of coming in like clockwork. He was, every night around the same time, and he just kind of ghosted. He disappeared. His little running buddies were going with him, which was crazy. So we had him, and then we had a tall 8-pointer that was, he was a pretty good deer. I was able to harvest one several years ago that looks similar, and I just like crazy looking deer. I don't like those perfect 8s, 10s, 12s, whatever. You know, I like some character to them. So then he disappeared, and then another one of the little spots that we hunt on that same property, it's nothing but hardwoods on that side. Well, a double main beam buck had showed up. Never seen him. He was nowhere on the property. So when I seen him, I was like, you know what? Since he disappeared, I'm gonna start dedicate my time to him. Well, that didn't last long. He was there for probably 2 weeks, and he completely disappeared as well. I'm pretty sure I have him on camera this year. It'd be pretty cool if it was him. So I do think he did make it. I just think that he's old, and he's a big body deer. He's just smart. He had showed up, like I said, for a few days, and then around the 17th of September, he showed back up. Around the same time, and at this point we had still had some of the Pro Blend still out, just to see what was there, you know. And then we also, like y'all seen in some of our videos and posts, we use the Ragstar blocks, which is what we put out to try to see what we could draw in. So he showed back up, and then he had his little running buddies with him again. So that next day, my boss is watching this. I'm sorry, I did tell you what I was doing. I went to my boss and I told him, I said, hey, I know this sounds crazy, but I have this deer and I have to go after him. So I, at that point, knew that I was going after him until either season was over or I harvested him, whichever one came first. So like I said, on the 19th, he had daylighted at that point. So I went in every day, every afternoon, because he didn't really show up much in the morning, so I went in the afternoons. And he showed up for several days straight, and then he would daylight. He stopped coming at night, and then again he disappeared. So at that point, the guys on the property that I hunt, there's a few guys that hunt there, but they're not there a whole lot. And they knew I was after him, and it was constant, like, hey, have you seen him? Have you seen him? And I didn't really move because he kept coming to that same spot. So finally, he showed back up, but this time he was not down on that swamp bottom. He was up where those pines were. And he showed up with one of the same bucks that has showed up with him every time. So we I had to change where I was going. So at this point, I told Raleigh, I said, I want you to hunt that bottom, and again, if he'd have come out, I'm gonna tell you, I'd been tickled for Raleigh to harvest him. But I told him, I said, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go up there and I'm gonna hunt that 2-man stand. So I went and I hunted that 2-man stand. Usually I hunt out of the saddle, and I had a bad feeling about it, but I just went ahead and went and got that 2-man just because it had been there. But it was one of the ones that has a canopy over the top, and I got in there, and lo and behold, guess who shows up? He shows up. So I'm sitting there and I'm watching him, you know, and I wanted to take my time because, again, I didn't. At this point, I'm several weeks in, you know, and I have hours and hours and hours of watching him and trying to pattern him and figure out where he is, and sitting, and I mean literally sitting in the stand. I have hours, and I've hunted a lot of deer in my life, but I've never hunted one so hard. And he's not anything super huge and super crazy, but it's something that I put a lot of hard work and dedication into. And for it to finally pay off, I mean, it's worth it, you know. So, so I'd gotten a stand. I'm sitting there, and he comes out, gets around the feeder, and about that time, I had 2 does come in. and they were on edge the minute they came in. I know for a fact it wasn't me. My scent, there was no scent at all. The wind wasn't blowing at all. I think he was kind of pushing them a little bit. So they kind of got sketched out, and they came and fed for a minute, and they finally walked off. And as they walked off, he walked off. Well, I'm sitting there, and he comes back in, and I go to draw my bow back, and literally I can't. I'm at half draw, and I'm stuck because the way I'm sitting in that stand. I mean, you know, some of those ladder stands are just not big at all. So short end of it is I just had to let down and watch them. I had to watch them walk. And I'm gonna tell you that right there was probably the worst feeling ever. So he stayed there for probably about another 20 minutes or so, and he moseyed on. And at that point, I was like, it's done. You know, I don't think he'll come back. I don't think I'll be able to catch him. So I got down, went and picked up Raleigh. And I'm gonna give him a huge shout out here. And this kid, man, at this point he was 14. I mean, he's 15 now, but at 14 years old, he's dedication and wanting other people to enjoy hunting and have fun doing it. He sat there and watched and sat for hours just for me to harvest him. And two, in one of our first videos, you'll see where Olin killed his first deer, and it was a buck. And same thing, Raleigh went through a tough spell this past season, but he stuck it out. He sat out with us, and he enjoyed it. And that's something that I thoroughly respect and honor. So I appreciate it, kid. Thank you for always being there with me. So he started going back down that bottom, but he was coming back at night, and he was, I don't know, his patterns were off, and it was throwing me off. So again, I just told Rod, I was like, you stay at that bottom, I'll just stay up here at the 2-man, and if you get him, you get him. If I get him, I get him. So finally, a couple days later, this buck shows up, and it was one of the ones that was running with him. And he had come in, and again, where this 2-man stand is, it's nothing but planted pines. It's so thick in there. So he had come in and he was feeding, and the thing that threw me off was usually when he would come in, Sticks would come in with him. And he didn't. So at that point, I thought, worst case, somebody had already harvested him. So at that point, I'm trying to figure out what my next move is, which one I want to go after next. You know, because I'd had my heart set on him, just because of the simple fact, like, I had put so much time and effort into it. And when I chased him and chased him and chased him and studied him. So it was guys that hunt and actually go out and study these deer and try to track them down and stay on that same deer. They know how tough it is. And again, some guys don't want giants. Some guys, I mean, you could harvest a 4-pointer as long as that makes you happy. That's good enough for me. Obviously ethically, but we so that his running mate showed up, and then he started showing up at the 2 spots, and at that point I figured he was done for. So it was tough, because I finally got to a point where I was like, you know what, I'm done. I'm not gonna hunt him. I'm not gonna hunt for the rest of the season. And I shouldn't have let it get to me, but I had my heart set on. So finally, I told Raleigh, you know, he wanted to skip school so bad. And no, I do not condone you skipping school, but he wanted to skip school so bad, and his mom was totally against it. So I told him, I said, look, I said, how about when school gets out, I'll pick you up from school, and we'll leave straight from school and go to the property. So we did that, and at this point, this was October 7th, And I told him, I said, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna climb out of the back side of this two-man. I'm gonna take my saddle. I'm gonna climb out the back and get up the tree, and I'm gonna get above that two-man, because at that point they're so used to that ladder stand there that they never paid attention to it. So I climbed out of that two-man and hung my platform up, climbed up, and I got just above it, and I had this tree that was right behind me, and I had to trim out just a little bit, but I was tucked enough behind the two-man stand and the top he couldn't see me, the pine trees here, and I had just enough room that if he, where I normally knew he would come from, I had enough room to shoot him. So I sat there. Raleigh went to just a random stand, and he wasn't even there really to hunt. He was sitting there to hunt, but he was going out there. That's what I'm telling you. He's a great kid. He was out there to be there the day that it happened, and he had so much faith in it that he kept pushing me like, Dad, we gotta go. So we're sitting there, where I am, and does come in, and they're sketched out the whole time. And at that point, it brought me back to where I was with them when I had seen them, and I just said, you know what, I'm gonna wait it out. I'm gonna sit it out. So I had heard something behind me, and the way that tree was, if I turned around, I can't see much behind me because it's so thick and growing up behind me. But I turned, and you could see movement, but it was hard to tell because there's hogs down there what it was. Well, about that time, I had realized and noticed that it was a deer, and this was the slowest moving deer I've ever seen in my life. But finally, after about 10 minutes, I had realized, and I got my binos on him and realized it was his running mate. So I'm like, well, if he comes in, and again, he was a big body deer, just old. I think he was more on the decline side of his growth. And I just watched him, and I had made my mind, if he comes in, I'll take my shot at him. So he moseyed around, and they always took the longest way around, the way these pines are set up. It was about 45 minutes I had watched him, and he had just kept on and kept on. Finally, he come up to the feeder and started feeding, and probably 20 minutes of him sitting there, he started getting sketched out, but he kept looking behind him, and I couldn't see anything. So I went to go draw my bow, and about that time I had seen antlers behind the tree. Well, at this point I'm stuck, so I realized that it's him. So now I'm in a position of, do I take my shot at him or take my shot at him? And I was like, you know what, I'm taking my shot at him, because that's the one I'm after. That's the one I wanted. I had lost hope, which was on me. One thing I'm going to tell you that I ask God for every day is patience. And if you deer hunt, you have to learn patience. And God taught me patience. That was a lesson I learned with this. And so I let my bow down. He come up. He started feeding. And at this point, these two are just like, they're not really paying attention to each other, but they're to the point where they're about to spar. And he sticks his head up, and his running buddy had come up and went to come after him, and he took off. Well, finally they come back, they calm down. So I was like, you know what? The way these pine trees are, I literally have like a 5-foot gap here and maybe 10 foot over here, but I have to take my shot right here. So at that point, I knew if he turns and he makes his way into that little 5-foot gap, I have to stop him, and I have to take a shot, because if not, if he gets sketched out or this other buck runs him off, then there's my opportunity again. So at this point, I draw, and I'm at full draw, and no sooner did I get it full draw, he looked dead at me, and I'm like, you got to be kidding! Like, there's no way he knows I'm there. There's no way he smells me. There's no way possible that he can see me. So he stares straight at me. And I kid you not, it was about 3 minutes at least that I was at full draw, and he had finally looked down, and I had to move, but I'm so close to this pine tree that like if I lean too much to take my shot, I'm hitting the pine tree. So I have to like lean out. When I leaned out, he popped his head back up. So keep in mind, we're pushing 4 minutes. So finally he goes back down to feeding, and I took my shot. Well, he hits the ground, and at that point I'm like, man, I missed, because he didn't react as like he got shot. Well, he dropped, and he jumped back up pretty quick, turned around, and he ran so hard in this pine tree. I don't know how I didn't knock down off. He took off, but where he ran, it's so thick in there I couldn't see. So I didn't know whether to be excited, not excited. So his little running buddy, he took off. Probably a minute or so after I shot, he didn't know what was going on. So on this piece of property where I was at, I don't have service there, so me and Charlie have to use a walkie-talkie. So I called him, was like, hey, I'm gonna come pick you up. I just shot. I don't know if I hit him. I don't see blood. I don't see my arrow. I don't know what happened. Raleigh starts freaking out. He's excited. I'm like, I don't want to get excited till I lay my hands on him. So I go out. I go pick him up. We waited probably about 45 minutes or so, and it was starting to get a little dark. So we go down and we look where I shot, or where he was when I shot, and there was a little bit of blood. Well, I told Riley, I was like, well, maybe we need to back out. I don't. At this point, the odds were so stacked against me from the beginning to the end that I was like, you know what? Again, God teach me patience. At that point, I had just lost hope, right? Like, man, I had chased after him. I messed up. What could I have changed? What did I do wrong? What could I have done to do better? And about that time, Raleigh's like, he puts his hand on me. He's like, Dad, he's right there. And I'm like, there's no way. And he's like, no, seriously, he's laying right there. And lo and behold, he was probably it was like 30, 35 yards from where I shot. He had piled up. So once that set in, I'm gonna tell you, there's nothing like celebrating something like that, and with other people. If I go out and I film them, or if I'm just sitting with other people that are hunting, like, I just enjoy so much of watching other people do this. I get pure excitement and joy out of it. But for the roles to be reversed for my, at that time, 14-year-old son to sit countless hours after hours so unselfishly to wait for that one day for me to be able to harvest the one deer that I have chased and been after, and I had made my mind up like, hey, this is what I'm after, is just wild. And I can't thank him enough for that. So thank you. I really appreciate that, Raleigh. You don't realize how much I look up to you, man. I'm proud to call you my son. I'm honored to be your dad. So we get him, take him back to camp, and we get our pictures and all that. So that's where I thought the story ended, was pure excitement. I got the deer that I wanted, and again, it was October 7th is when that happened. And at this point, it was crunch time. I was like, Olin's killed his deer. I've got mine. Now it's Raleigh's turn. Like, I will not carry my bow, a rifle, nothing until Raleigh gets his. So from that point, we're like in the woods, every chance we can make it, whether it be during the weekday after work or the weekends. If I tell y'all, man, Raleigh could not catch a break last season. He just, and it wasn't anything he did wrong. It wasn't anything at his fault. The deer just weren't there where he was. So, so finally one day I told Raleigh, I was like, hey, I'm gonna start doing a little bit of doe management, just because of the simple fact that there's so many does on this property. And as some of y'all know that are watching this, again, I appreciate you reaching out to me, wanting some meat. and I was able to give you some deer. So I try to every season try to harvest so many does, obviously for us, but for other people, whether they just don't have the time or can't do it or just don't have the property or whatever, I try to make it a point every season to harvest a few to donate, and I was able to do this past season. So again, thank you all for reaching out. So this was November 10th. We go out. Raleigh's hunting the same spot. He had seen, I had got, and if I can remember to do it, I'll post the pictures. There was a buck. We were in Alabama hunting, and this buck had showed up, and I literally just put a camera out just to put it out to sea, and this buck just showed up, and I literally laid down right in front of the camera, and he showed up to this same spot day in, day out. So I was like, I want to go after him. So Raleigh sits that stance. Okay, well, I'm gonna go down past you. I said, I'll be honest with you, I'm not gonna shoot anything. I'm just gonna climb a random tree. I'll sit there and I'll just wait on you. And he was like, well, if a doe comes out, we do need to do management. So he said, if one comes out, just shoot it. So I literally go 200 and maybe 50 yards down past him, and I find this random pine tree in a spot that I was like, there's no way I'm gonna see anything just because of where it was. I was like, I'm gonna climb this tree and I'm gonna sit here. I had taken my rifle with me, and I called up the tree. It wasn't 45 minutes into sitting. I had something that caught my eye, and I'd look down, and this buck was walking up, and the only reason I knew it was a buck was because just the body, how massive he was. And it looked like a little bitty tree branch moving. So I'm sitting there and I get my binos, look down, and I can't tell who it is, how big, how little, but the body was massive. And it dawned on me, and as slow as he walked up, it had clicked. I'm like, this deer reminds me of that same one on the bottom side. So he comes up, he literally walks through these two trees that I still can't see his antlers or nothing. And he steps out, and that's when I realized it's his running mate. And I was like, there's no way this is happening. I, at that point, told myself, I cannot shoot this deer because Raleigh's up the hill from me. I am not taking that from him. But I sat back, and again, so unselfishly how he is as a person. If I didn't, he'd have gave me a hard time of not shooting than shoot him. So I sat there and I was like, if he turns just right, I'll shoot. Well, he turns just right, and I shot, and he fell right there, didn't run, didn't go anywhere. So I get down. Raleigh texted me, and he said, "Are you kidding me?" So I texted him, I was like, well, it's not a doe, it's a buck. And he's like, are you kidding me? And I was like, well, it's also his running mate. So again, goes back to God and patience. A story that I never thought. I watched so many videos of people telling stories like this, of relentlessly going after an animal, whether it be a deer or a bear or a hog or whatever, something that means something to you. It doesn't have to be the biggest animal out there, the small, whatever. Again, whatever tickles your fancy, I'm all for it. Don't get me wrong, I want to go bigger and bigger with my deer, but it's not about the size for me. It's about my time out and what God created. It's my time with my kids, my time with my wife, my time with my friends. I love fellowshipping. I love people. I love my God. He's given me everything that I have, and I can't think of enough. So I get down, I walk over to him, and lo and behold, it was his running mate. So he was, like I said, he was on the decline, and I'll show the pictures of him when he was running by himself. And it was the craziest thing because, again, I never thought that I would ever have a story like this, but also to finish the story of a deer that was running with another deer, and I was able to harvest both. And keep in mind, where I harvested him and where I harvested him were probably, I don't know, I'll say this, it was on one side of the property to the other, it was probably a good eighth of a mile, quarter of a mile. Like, it wasn't close. So I can't thank God enough. I can't thank my wife for supporting our habits, and just being able to chase these animals, and my kids, you know, just to be able to raise them in this and let them enjoy this just as much as I do. So with that being said, I really appreciate each one of y'all that follow us. I appreciate each one of y'all that share our videos and follow us on Instagram and stuff. So I do appreciate it. So if you do not mind, for the rest of you, follow us, like, subscribe, share. We have a lot of cool things coming, a lot of cool stories, and we just think that we just think and hope that you'll enjoy them just as much as we do. So thank you for watching this. Thank you for listening to the story of Sticks.